You are on, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. You ready, Dr. Garcia? Happy to go ahead
Ready.
first. All right. We'll go ahead and call this regular board meeting of the Santa Fe Public Schools Board of Education to order. It's June 3rd at 4:34 p.m. by my clock. And we have Secretary Bozay, Board Member Price, and President Kate Noble present. We do have an excused absence from Dr. Gonzalez, and we have not heard from Vice President Garcia at this point. But we do have a quorum, so we'll go ahead and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance and salute to the New Mexico flag in English and in Spanish, as well as the acknowledgement of tribal land. Anybody feeling inspired?
Today I feel inspired.
I like it.
So I'll help. I'll do it. Unless somebody wants to do English, I'll do Spanish. Whichever you prefer.
I'm happy to do English.
Okay.
You can do Spanish.
All righty.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Juro fidelidad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos.
I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Saludo la bandera del Estado de Nuevo México, el símbolo Zia de amistad perfecta entre culturas unidas.
And the acknowledgement of tribal land. We acknowledge the original people of the land, the Tesuque Pueblo people and other tribal nations, and ask them to walk with us today as we share and learn together. Okay, moving along to approval of the agenda. Dr. Garcia, any need for changes?
Surprisingly, Madam President, members of the board, no.
All right.
I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you,
I
Secretary
second.
Bozay. Thank you, Board Member Price. We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote on approval of the agenda. Secretary Bozay,
Yes.
Board Member Price,
Yes.
and the President votes yes. We have approved the agenda. Roman numeral 2, introduction of interpreter. Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Para servicio de traducción en español, marque 701-802-5152, número de acceso 4277-932 #. Por favor, mantenga su teléfono en silencio durante la traducción. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Moving swiftly along to Roman numeral 3, our executive session. Secretary Bozay.
Madam President, I would like to make a motion that the executive board move into, the Board of Education move into executive session where we will discuss collective bargaining NMSA 1978.
Okay. I'll go ahead and second that. Do a roll call vote on going into executive session. Secretary Bozay,
Yes.
Board Member Price,
Yes.
and the President votes yes. So we will be in executive session. We will return to the regular session on or about 5:30. Thank you very much. We'll see you over there. Crunch. Well, we're hoping a couple more board members will join us soon. Board Member Price.
Yep, here I am.
Excellent. And Secretary Bozé was just joining. There she is. All right, we have a quorum. Secretary Bozé, you want to bring us back from executive session?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I would like to make a motion to bring the Board of Education out of executive session where we discussed collective bargaining and no action was taken.
I'll second.
Thank you, Board Member Price. We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Secretary Bozé,
Yes.
Board Member Price,
Yes.
and the President votes yes. We are back in the regular session. And we have moved on to our school board showcase. And we begin with Mandela International Magnet School violin soloist, Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I'm going to turn this over to our music coordinator, Ms. April Pickrell.
Good evening. This is 10th grader, rising junior, Sadie O'Sullivan, performing Meditation from Dice by Jules Massenet and accompanied by Robert Krupnik. She recorded this solo at the Lindsay through their Student Showcase series. Carla Cantupes, the orchestra director at Mandela, arranged to have 3 Mandela students perform at the Lindsay this year. She had to record and submit an audition video on behalf of students before the Lindsay would approve any video recordings in their series. It was an amazing pandemic perk and a professional quality music video on a world-class stage that students will have for a lifetime. Please enjoy.
Thank you, Ms. Pickrell.
Thank you, thank you. I can't wait until we can play in person again.
Quite, though that was fabulous and a really rather good shot. It's kind of mournful with the music and the empty seats behind her.
It's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pickerel. Next on our school board showcase, we have item B, Aspen Community Magnet School, a transforming school. Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, to introduce this school, and the principal will be Associate Superintendent Christy Wagner, Deputy Superintendent, excuse me, Christy Wagner. Before Ms. Wagner introduces Ms. Morris, this particular project is something that was near and dear to my heart, which we had going at 3 schools, and that was working with the Transformational Leadership Institute on working, using the vehicle of transformational leadership to implement school change. And so Deputy Superintendent Wagner, take it away.
Good evening, Superintendent, Board President, board members. Dr. Garcia really summarized my introduction of this project. It's a real pleasure to introduce Ms. Tina Morris, and the video she has tonight really speaks volumes to the power of this partnership and the Leadership Institute and the work she's doing. So Ms. Morris, why don't you take it away?
You're muted, Ms. Morris. Can see you talking.
Every meeting has to start with that statement. You're muted.
Now we can
Good
hear you though.
evening, President Noble and members of the Santa Fe Public Schools Board of Education. Good evening, Superintendent Garcia and Deputy Superintendent and my special colleague and Supervisor Christy Wagner. It's my pleasure to be with you today to share some of the exciting developments at Aspen Community School over the past 2 years. My name is Tina Morris, and I am honored to have been a principal since 1991 and a principal in Santa Fe for the past 5 years and the last 2 at Aspen. Fortunately, our superintendent, as she just said, placed a 3-year challenge in front of us in the name of school transformation through the Santa Fe Center for School Transformation. And this work has helped us develop purpose, cohesiveness, and tools to use as the adults in the building. But more importantly, our transformation work has put learners' needs at the top of our priority list. Throughout the slides that you are going to see, please know that we follow your lead and we value your goals of providing an engaging education while maximizing resources. The Aspen faculty and staff fully embrace the attributes of a graduate, especially the attributes of being academically proficient and civically responsible citizens who show grit and courage. You will see some brief examples of how we developed our compelling purpose and have embedded that purpose within all that we do, from communications to PLCs to deeper learning projects that we put in front of our kids. You will see examples of how we connect to each other in the community, how we practice mindfulness and integrate arts with STEM activities. You'll see how we have truly shared leadership. And at the end, you're going to see how one of our English language learners overcame her fear of reading out loud in front of her colleagues and just reading it all, and showed gray wolf resiliency. Thank you for the opportunity to showcase the incredible work that the Aspen staff and students do with joy each day.
Is there meant to be sound?
Ms. Morris, there's no audio right now, and I know this has some narrative.
That's important that you have audio. Do you have audio now?
Doesn't
We
seem
still
that way,
don't.
no.
No.
We could go, Madam President, to Desert Sage Academy and then come back. You want to do that?
Yes, I apologize. You have no audio. I practiced this 10 times and it worked fine. Sorry about that.
That's Murphy's Law. Sure, why don't we move on to our other school board showcase and see if,
I think they're ready.
okay, Desert Sage Academy School Days.
Correct. And introducing this program will be our incoming superintendent, Larry Chavez.
Good evening, everyone. Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Garcia. This is actually, hopefully we have some better luck because we have two videos, and this is the first time Desert Sage or the previous school, the Academy, has ever presented to the Board of Education. So it's a new beginning for a school, and we're hoping that you guys enjoy our videos. So take this time to introduce current principal, Alice Braden. Ms. Braden, go ahead and take it away.
Hello, can you hear me and see me? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. All right, so good afternoon or good evening, close to good evening, Dr. Garcia and Mrs. Kate Noble, and the Board of Education, and thank you, Larry, for introducing us. I do have two videos that we'd like to show, and I don't see any of my students here, so I think they were just very nervous. So I'll go ahead and I guess share my screen and show you the videos. And I want to say a few things about these videos. The first video, so this year, as you know, is our first year as a school, Desert Sage Academy, and as a previous school, we didn't have the same goals, and the goals this year was to really try to introduce technology and computer sciences into what we do at the school. And so one of the things that one of our teachers decided to take on was esports. And so this first video that I'm going to show you is about our esports team. And I'm hoping that you hear the sound on this also. And of course I did practice it, so I hope you enjoy. Let's see if I can hide you. There we go.
I don't have sound on this video either. Not sure if you've.
Is there no sound either?
There is not.
Okay,
But
I think I
we can
know.
talk.
I think we have to mute ourselves for them to work. I think that's part of the problem, maybe.
You can continue to play it, Alice, and we can talk about it because this is actually the first club or sports team of anything in person or virtual or esports to really stay on topic that Desert Sage has had. So this was the first type of club or activity that we created at Desert Sage, and they joined the Rocket League. And Desert Sage actually competed across the state with other school districts. They actually qualified for the tournament and really enjoyed the competition. They shared links. We got to watch some of the games, and they actually had a really good sponsor that was really in tune to really getting this off the ground. Do you want to add anything, Alice, to that?
I just want to say that, you know, we had to do a lot of recruiting because, of course, we only had just a few students, but we have students lined up for next year. And so we're looking forward to having a great team next year. We also have one of our students returning to us. So this is this is the Rocket League, a little bit, some of excerpts out of the Rocket League. And this, what you're watching right now, is actually our video that we're using to recruit more students.
Desert Sage, along with Capital, had 2 teams that competed against other schools across the state. So really wanted to give kudos to both schools because they really took that head on, especially during the pandemic when we were in remote learning. And they actually started this club during that time. So when we were transitioning back, they already had this in place. So Alice and her team did a great job of really getting this off the ground and getting students involved, even when they were home during the pandemic. Attending school remotely.
Can
Right.
you tell us a little bit about how esports work?
Mm-hmm.
But sorry, Ms. Braden, if you wanted to go ahead.
No, that's okay. I didn't hear that.
Go ahead, Ms. Braden.
So I didn't hear your question.
Oh, my question was how esports work. Sort of looks like
Okay,
a video game.
So we're working through a group that is approved by it's via sports that's approved by the state. And basically there are teams, the schools can have up to so many teams in them, depending on, of course, how much they pay. But they have different teams. They have a varsity team, and then they have something somewhat like a JV team where our middle schoolers can play. They just can't play in any tournaments, but they can play in any of the practices so that they can get some experience for the next year. And so we had 3 high schoolers and 1 middle schooler this year that went through it with us. So, but here was our recap. It's the first, as a school, our first team ever. And so they meet, what they'll do is they'll meet with other teams. They can ask other teams to scrimmage. And so they get a chance to do a lot of scrimmaging for practice. And then they'll have games that they have on certain days that they have to participate in. We actually had one of our students left, and so our team had to play with 2 students for a while. So let's see, if I close this, do I close everything?
So when you go to the next video, if I may, Madam President, I was just talking to Mr. Beta, Joe Beta, and if you go back on your screen, he can talk you through it. If you notice, we see that little microphone there and that arrow on the bottom, and he can talk you through it. He says it's about you allowing your computer to allow Zoom to be able to access your audio on your computer.
Okay.
So he could try to talk you through it if you have another video that you wanted to show.
We do. One of the things we did is, as part of trying to get the computer sciences and everything, and also working to do cross-curricular work, project-based work, we had our middle schoolers made a movie that is produced, and the film was sent to California and sent back after it was processed, and it is now on YouTube. And so this is a YouTube one this is the video that the students made themselves. And I just, hold on, let me,
Can you stop talking for a second so that Joe can tell you what to do?
So
see if we can make it work.
So on your Zoom window, if you can go down to where it says that it shows the microphone and there's like the word mute underneath it, you see that? Click on the little arrow there to the right of it.
Right here?
Well, I can't see, but on your Zoom window.
Okay, let me go to my Zoom window here. Sorry.
Yeah.
I've got everything is just moved everywhere here.
Yeah.
It's just like wherever you would normally mute yourself when you're on Zoom.
Yeah, when you're on Zoom, there's a little arrow that's facing up.
Sorry, guys. Now I'm on some kind of a
So let's go ahead and not share
Okay.
the screen. Let's go ahead and we'll unshare the screen here. I'm going to go ahead and you can just unshare it and just let's go back to you. There you go.
Okay.
Excellent. So now you want to go down to the little microphone with the mute button, the mute sign, and there's like a little arrow that you need to push down on.
Okay.
Okay. And
All
then
right.
you see where it says select a speaker.
Yes.
Okay. What is it on right now?
Speakers, Realtek Audio.
Okay. Are you hooked up to any kind of speakers, external speakers?
No.
Okay. What's the other option on there?
Same as system.
Let's try same as system.
Can you hear that?
Okay. So now let's go ahead and share your screen.
Okay, hold on. Let me pause my.
Okay. This is just a guess. I'm
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Since it's happening to everyone, this is a good way for us to figure it out.
Yep.
All right. Do you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to try playing it.
Okay. Okay. I'll tell you what. Why don't I play it for you? What is it listed? Can anybody watch it?
Yep, I think so. You
What's
can't hear
your-
it right now?
What's your account? What is your account under Love in the Time of is it Love in the Time of Corona? Would I find that? Let's
Yes.
see.
Yeah.
Love in
Could even put the link in the chat.
Yes, we could do that actually.
Okay, so where would I find the link?
If you go up to the top, the
yeah.
address bar,
Of course.
that, and copy that into the chat.
Of course. Okay. Let me close that. Stop sharing. And then chat. Paste. There you go.
Okay, let me okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. And see what happens.
And I'm going to mute.
Okay.
So while you're watching this, I can just say that this was to introduce students to the concepts and techniques used in experimental art, vignette storytelling, and the practice of 16mm filmmaking. think the music went off after a while again. But this was completely set up by our students, even though it was jumping around also, but and including the music. They developed it. We pulled out an old piano, and they did all of the work on it and all of the editing online.
Very cool.
How wonderful. It takes me back to film school.
Very cool.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. Spooky.
Well, it was sort of spooky, wasn't it? That whole time frame. Yeah, that was really, I like experimental contemporary art in that manner. That was great.
Exactly.
Thank you, Ms. Braden.
You're welcome. And just for context, we had the shot clinic at our school, and that's what you were watching.
Ah, okay. That's wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, back to Aspen Community School Transforming Learning. Ms. Morris? Oh, you're muted.
Thank you for your patience. Sorry for the technical challenges, and I hope you enjoy the slides we put together for you.
Thank you.
Ms. Morris, can you unmute your mic? Because that's what enables us to be able to hear the slideshow if there's any sound.
Can you walk me through that again? This is
No.
such.
That's fine. You just need to keep your mic unmuted because you're muting your whole sound. So you can start it. It'll play. The sound will play now.
Joe, it's actually me this is Dr. Weaver. It's actually me who's presenting.
Okay, Dr. Weaver. Unmute your mic and then hit play, please, sir.
You got it. Can you hear now?
It's not playing yet.
We can't hear it now.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Okay. You might need to refresh. Dr.
Can you hear now?
No, it's not playing. You might need to refresh the YouTube screen.
Yeah, I apologize. I don't think this is going to work, guys.
Let's try play one more time. There you go.
Push come to shove, I can always just send it to you, and board members can enjoy this in the privacy of your own home.
I think what's key here, Tina, is if you can just tell them about what they were going to see. I mean, like what you all accomplished as a team, I think is really important.
Tell us the story.
Tell you the story. Okay. Wow, that's on the spot and such a switch up. We have spent the last 2 years delving into some tools that help us as leaders, and delving into deeper learning and working with strengthening our PLCs as the vehicle for us to move forward in every other endeavor that we want to do. The main thing that we're doing at Aspen is connectedness. So you see all kinds of connections going on in the community. The Office of Sustainability selected us as a recipient of outdoor education spaces. And so we now have these 2 amazing areas for our students to go outdoors and learn. You read about our NASA space project. We have an Aspen Garden Growers Club. We're all about making connections in the community and connections with each other. And one of the things I think that was the most rewarding for me this year was to see how well our older students connected with our younger students. The 8th graders enjoy being with the preschoolers. We had a big grand opening for our first preschool at Aspen with a tricycle parade, and it was great fun. The kids threw out candy, and the 8th graders, 7th graders just wouldn't miss it. So great things are happening at Aspen based on the abilities and skills and tenacity of an amazing staff. I'm so grateful that Dr. Garcia put this transformation opportunity in front of me, and it's an honor to work for the Santa Fe Public Schools and specifically at Aspen with the peeps I love. Kindness matters. Did you guys get your stickers?
We did. Remember that campaign. And what I think the strategy around transformational leadership and the Institute is that we have various, curriculum that is provided, professional development strategies. But if you can't capture the minds and hearts, of your team, and that they see the higher purpose for the work and how they can bring it to life and make it meaningful to them as a community, you don't always get that deep, rich involvement. And it is a process. And they did a great job with this under Tina's leadership at Tasuke. And then some of her team that went with her to Tasuke, they started over, and they will have their 3rd year next year with it. I would like to see it expanded, but the funding, hasn't been there for it to the level that we would like. But it's really been great work, and Tina's done a great job with it.
Thank you.
Where does the funding come from? It's grants?
We funded it somewhat out of operational, and then this last year out of, I think we did CARES Act, a little bit of CARES Act, I think. And then I believe it's going to be an ESSER 2 for Aspen to continue, I believe, right, Vanessa?
Yes, you're correct.
Well, wonderful. Thank you. I love my sticker. It's on my notebook, which I actually have the wrong notebook here, but otherwise I'd show you. And I see it every day and it makes me happy. So thank you. And I really appreciate having that and learning more about this. And please do send us the MP4 so we can watch it on our own time.
We'll get it to them, Tina.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Moving on, we're at Roman numeral 5, a union update. I have not seen Ms. Mayer. Ms. Mayer, are you here? Does not look that way. Maybe this is one of those conflicting meeting times. Anybody here for a union update? Nope. Moving swiftly along, we arrive at Roman numeral 6, public forum. Dr. Garcia, do we have anyone?
Thank you, Madam President and members of the board. Filling in for Cody Donarski this evening is Dr. Neil Weaver. Do we have anyone signed up for public forum?
Good evening, Board President, members of the board, Superintendent Garcia. There are 0 people signed up for public comment.
Thank you, Dr. Weaver. So on we go to Roman numeral 7, board announcements and follow-up. Anyone have any board announcements or follow-up? Hearing none, we will keep going. Superintendent announcements and follow-up. Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. The first thing I want to talk about this evening that I had not planned on, and that is that we received the announcement that our longtime and beloved principal of our Blue Ribbon School, Janice Devote, is retiring. And we're so excited for her. We're very sad. We're going to miss Ms. Devote. I think you all saw the press release, and Danielle Agard will be the new principal. And we just want to thank her for her unbelievable service. I think she's also like at 48 or 49 years of service, and just amazing the work that she has done. And we're are tremendously indebted to her for all the lives that she has touched. She really is a Santa Fe Public Schools institution. My next announcement is the Nusenda Teacher of the Month. For May, we'd like to congratulate him, and I think he's here, Michael Margolis. There he is. And he teaches 3rd and 4th grade at Nina Otero Community School. People shared, that he every day in his class is filled with joy and wonder, that we learn about so many amazing things, from black holes, the history of film, food from around the world, and so much more. He encourages students to become leaders by applying leadership pedagogy in his classroom. Students are allowed the opportunity to make decisions about their learning and the topics studied. He goes above and beyond, volunteering many more hours than he is contracted to teach. He works to develop an individual talent in each student and give support. He knows his students will help. He knows his students well and helps them make decisions that will drive future choices about careers and education. He's a consummate educator. And so congratulations, Mr. Margolis. Would you like to say anything?
Well, just thank you very, very much. Thank you, Dr. Garcia and President Noble. I met you at Gonzalez, and I know April from Gonzalez is here. So it's always been a rewarding experience for me, and I love the students, and that's really why I do what I do. And I've had a great team, a great co-teacher, Jerry Lynn Morning Manzanares and Trisha Garrity, and the whole team at Nina Otero have been very supportive. It's a great family to work with there. So thank you very much. It's kind of shocked. I was very shocked by this whole thing. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay.
Well, thank you for doing what you do. And I don't know, I think you got some of the best words. If you get joy and wonder in your classroom, that's kind of everything. And we really appreciate you and congratulate you and want you to keep going.
Okay. Thank you very much. I plan on it.
And then for the NEA Educational Support Professional of the Month is Sylvia Diaz, a Special Education Secretary at Santa Fe High School. Are you here, Ms. Diaz? There you are.
Hello, everybody. Good
Hello.
evening.
Sylvia has served Santa Fe Public Schools for 27 years as an administrative assistant at Santa Fe High School. She schedules over 700 IEP plans for students at the school during 1 year. She goes over and beyond to ensure that parents are communicated with in a thoughtful and considerate manner, explaining to them the process in both English and Spanish so that they are comfortable with the virtual format. She handles our complicated ASOP system that takes care of absence reporting and ensuring that all classrooms are covered by a substitute teacher. With a staff of 85 classroom teachers, Sylvia is able to manage staff absences with precision and expertise. She is simply the best and is beloved by all. She handles as she handles stressful situations in a calm and professional manner. Her office is always open and students come to visit. She always has treats on her desk. I bet the grown-ups do too. She has near perfect attendance and offers great advice to new students and substitutes. Thank you, Ms. Diaz, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Would you like to say anything?
No. Actually, I'm shy. Just say thank you. But thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Well,
It's been
we
a pleasure.
appreciate you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you.
And next, I wanted to update you briefly on ESSER 3. We finally got our allocation and found out more about allowable expenses. And then I want to tell you about our plans for community input. But before I go to community input, I would like to introduce Ryan Cooper, our Federal Programs Coordinator. Ms. Cooper.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Garcia, and thank you, Board President and members of the board. I have a brief slideshow for you this evening. Let me present now.
I want to say that Ms. Cooper is another one of our district's rising stars. Very talented.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Okay. So this slide right here shows the timelines of the funding and the schedule, how the funds will be made available. The funds will expire in September 2024. And the way that the structure works with the funds, we'll get 2/3 of it now, and then the final 1/3 when PED gets the full allocation from the U.S. Department of Education. Just note on this slide right here that there's a minimum 20% set aside for learning loss. And that's to remedy any learning loss caused by the pandemic and provide accelerated learning opportunities such as extended school year, extended school day, tutoring, after school enrichment programs, anything like that. Okay, so this is a very detailed slide that is about what the remaining 80% may be used towards. It can also go to that same set aside, or it can go to these categories, which are just generally safety and health, such as sanitation, PPE, facility and operations improvements, supporting students and families by addressing the needs of low-income families, children with disabilities, English learners, racial and ethnic minorities, students experiencing homelessness, and foster students. Also providing social emotional supports for students and families, continuing services if closures were to happen again, and also anything allowable under the other federal education laws. PED has put forth their statewide priorities. So those are closing the digital divide, accelerated instruction, supporting the social emotional needs of students, families, and staff, and supporting the unique needs of students with disabilities and at-risk students, providing PPE, and improving indoor air quality at school facilities. And this last slide here is touches on the required stakeholder engagement. What the American Rescue Plan requires is that LEAs, local education agencies, reach out and engage the community and solicit input into the ARP ESSER 3 application. And that's pretty much it.
And I wanted to say that we have to get significant and meaningful community input from a variety of stakeholders that we have to basically check the box when we submit and explain how we receive this input from students. It has to be what they define as meaningful consultation, means each stakeholder group was afforded multiple opportunities to provide feedback on the district's ARP application prior to the application being submitted. And we've already begun to get feedback already, but specifically students, families, school and district admin, including special ed, teachers, principals, school leaders, other educators, school staff, unions, tribes, civil rights organizations, including disability organizations, stakeholders representing the interests of children with disabilities, English language learners, children experiencing homelessness, children in foster care, migratory students, children who are incarcerated, and underserved students. So we've already developed some surveys in English and Spanish. We also have planned some town halls, and then we will use a multiple of strategies for getting this input from the various stakeholder groups and document that. We will also have for sure one town hall, possibly 2 town halls. The team has been working on a timeline for that. The intent is to do all of this community input on this process beginning now in June and through July. And then when the board reconvenes in August, the team should have some synthesis of the input so that the board can look at this and begin to prioritize how you want to expend these funds, because it is due to, it has to be posted on our website by August 24, 2021. And the application is due when, Ms. Cooper?
It is due then as well, August 24th. Although I would think you would maybe want to post it or submit it a little bit beforehand.
Of course. And so as we look at the meeting schedule for August, a little backward planning, because I would imagine, and of course you'll work that out with Mr. Chavez, but I would imagine that you'd want to look at it, digest that, come back, look at it again, and take action. So, you know, a couple of bites at the apple for you as a board in August. So June and July will be spent in gathering this input. And Ms. Ibarra from the Office of Community Engagement has been working with Ms. Cooper. We discussed this at SS Cabinet last week, or this week. It feels like Tuesday feels like a week ago, but the survey is already completed. I just have to give it one more look, and then we'll start getting it out to lots of different groups and communicating in various ways that we want this input, both informally and formally with various organizations. So any questions about that? We thought this was important to put it under my announcements after we got all this information, after the agenda was out. And so hence it's in the superintendent's announcements. Any questions for us?
So surveys, town halls, is that the sort of majority of the plans for input?
Yes, I mean, for example, we already visited once already with the Equity and Diversity Council, and we heard from them some of their priorities. For example, one was paying for endorsements so that teachers can be certified as teachers of students who have a language other than English, right? So we will meet with them and they'll probably formally take action. We'll probably work with Nancy Davis so that we can do a tribal consultation and have them come together and give us input. We might meet with Somos and have them do, perhaps ask them to have a Facebook live meeting. So it will be a variety of strategies working with various groups, but the survey itself, those basic questions are, this is what we're thinking. Here are possibilities. What other thoughts do you have of how, what are unmet needs to that can be addressed with this funding? Now keep in mind, my concern is that I know it seems like a good problem, but it's a lot of money to expend. And then we have the family income index that's coming also at the same time to address equity needs that's going directly to the schools. And those schools are also going to have to meet with their SACs and figure out how they're going to expend those funds. And, you know, you're going to have I think you're going to have a capacity problem if you don't diversify the funding. For example, if everybody wants to do after school enrichment, and maybe not all done by teachers, but by community, you know, it could be a shortage, right, of providers. And so I think, you know, again, and I'll talk to Larry about this, but just for the board to be thinking about it, we really have to diversify our strategies and look at the various areas, okay, like professional development. Within professional development, what are the key things that we would want to add more time to? How do we want to address some learning gaps? Are there additional kinds of strategies that we haven't implemented for kids in addressing this?
Well, that's sort of the interesting part. I just think about, you know, creative solutions, and we do have such a wonderfully creative community and asking for ideas. I mean, I'm with having one, and you know, there's a bunch in even what we heard tonight in the school board showcase and what's going on at Aspen, but thinking about how to create
things that will last ideally. I mean, obviously, professional development sort of falls into that category, but relationships, if we could get mentorships with older students and younger students at school, and, as tutors to help some of those kids with their learning loss or what have you, I don't know, if we can employ students or stipend them or that sort of thing, but
It's a creative idea. I think,
it would be great to solicit creative ideas in some
Uh-huh.
fashion.
And like you said, if we can give people an opportunity to get together and talk about it, not just the survey, but be able to brainstorm ideas, just like the Equity and Diversity Council has done, and they need to be brought back. But we're also going to send out a letter from me with this to our partners, which we have, hundreds of partners, and to say, okay, Chamber, if you'd like to have a conversation with members of the staff about possibilities, then maybe Vanessa and Larry could go to a chamber meeting and have a discussion about what the possibilities are. If board members wanted to have a town hall with your constituency, just have a conversation or hear ideas or needs, that would be another way. So I think it really is open. The survey is an organizing tool, and also to be sure that we're very intentional about each constituency that we have to meet. And it's difficult with school out, particularly
And
trying
it's
to
a
engage
really
students.
tight timeline.
And it's a very tight timeline. So, but these guys are creative and have some wonderful ideas already. So people aren't starting with a blank slate with that.
Yeah. And as, it might help to, I don't know, I'm coming to this cold, but think about some categories that the funding obviously can go into, so that the specificity of creative ideas could take longer to flesh out, even if there is a broad plan submitted by August 24th, which it sounds
Well,
like
we have to have a fairly specific plan that covers these areas. So for example, as we look at homelessness, we would probably talk to Tatiana and her team with Adelante, and what are the gaps, and our LGBTQ community. Lisa Vigil gave us a lot of input around English language learners. I'm sure Nancy Davis will have ideas of unmet needs for our indigenous people, right? And so there are some ways to cultivate great ideas meeting those different categories. Special education, children with disabilities, have been really experiencing loss in service to the degree that parents would like for their ancillary and support services. So could there be a way to then backfill speech and language therapy and PT and other services they didn't get? And before you know it, $13 million is expended, right, for that 1 year. So it's exciting.
And by
it's
when
a good problem.
Expended?
Huh?
By when do we need to expend this? Is this
2024.
Okay. So
But
this is
it's
not
a lot
all
of
for
money
this
every
school
year.
Yeah.
Yay. So that's
And the
that.
plans
Thank you.
for the money through 2024 have to be in by August 24th?
The general plan, yes.
Okay.
I think you can amend it just like we have other, we can put placeholder stuff in there as well.
Yeah. That will be some sort of magic formula.
But the real issue that they're really going to be looking at is that meaningful input.
Yeah.
And, I think what's important for our stakeholders to understand are the categories that we have to expend dollars and what the intent is, so that, it should all be going towards what the intent of the funding is. So it's not a complete whiteboard, of ideas. So there we are with that. And I'm glad that we've got some really wonderful people on the team that are going to help make this happen.
And we hope we can maybe, continue to have meaningful engagement, because the time frame is really challenging, as I know you've all thought about, but for meaningful engagement over the summer after an exhausting year. Anyway, it's a wonderful conversation that we have the chance to have for a good amount of money for a couple years. And my hope is we can meaningfully engage our community in an ongoing way, because that's a lot to ask people to get their heads around, and provide meaningful engagement really only in about 6 weeks. Maybe a little more if we go into August on that, but then there also has to be some synthesis time and the creation of the plan, of course. Are there other questions or comments from the board on this one? This is a big one.
Madam President.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Garcia, I did see a quick mention on one of those slides regarding school lunches and meals, and this may or may not be related, but I didn't see it anywhere else on the agenda, whether there is a plan for summer lunch meal distribution at all.
Yes, Madam President. Ms. Wagner, are you available?
Sorry, it took a minute for the camera. Board President, board members, Superintendent Garcia, our summer feeding program will be aligned more or less with sites that have summer programming. So if we have not done a press release on that, we'll go ahead and make sure that that gets out, and that we extend our reach widely to families. I don't know if Mr. Romero wants to add anything to that. It is free for kiddos 1 to 18. So that's an added benefit. And Mr. Romero, is any other detail that you can disclose this evening?
No, you covered, except going on to the next year, we'll have the same program in place as we did this year with free meals for children 1 through 18. So we're happy to report that that'll be good progress on the student nutrition end.
Madam President, if I may ask an add-on question. I think the summer programming kids, I mean, that makes sense, but I think perhaps the question may have been too, are we reaching out to provide programming, feeding programs for students who are not in school that might be experiencing hunger over the summer?
Typically, we have partnered with other agencies that are bringing food into the mobile home parks, and covering some of that reach aspect. Our programs have been fairly stationary. We did try pre-pandemic to offer some park locations, and quite frankly, even the neighborhood parks with densely populated residences nearby were not heavily frequented. So we'll look at our strategies one more time and make sure all of our partnerships are solid. But typically in the summer months, YouthWorks and other folks are helping us get those meals out into the community. There's multiple aspects of programming happening at one time. So we can get a little summary for superintendent announcements if you wish, Dr. Garcia, or just as a follow-up.
I think that would be good, because now we're not at post-pandemic, but we have many people who are unemployed, that it might be a little bit different than it was. However, if you remember at the height of the pandemic, when we had everybody at virtual, there was so much food going out that the participation was dropping in our programs. So, that's another example, I guess, of a good problem.
Thank you very much. Yes, and especially as someone who doesn't live in the city and communicates with people that live more rurally in the other areas of the county, in those places there aren't community parks, there aren't even necessarily mobile home parks or densely populated areas, but I know I've gotten a few questions already whether or not there are plans for summer meals. So I appreciate that and any follow-up that comes along. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. So I'm ready to move on if you are, Madam President.
I think so.
Okay. The next one is just a little Oh, I know everyone couldn't participate in all the graduation ceremonies, and just a little overview and congratulations to the class of 2021. Dr. Weaver.
And just to say thank you, Ms. Cooper, for the presentation.
Yes, thank you.
Dr. Garcia, I apologize. I do not have this video. I did not get it from Cody this morning.
All right, we're going to move on to the New Mexico Public Department approved the Santa Fe Public Schools pre-K application for Amy Beal Community School. And it's so exciting that we'll be offering this pre-K program at Amy Beal. This new program will allow us to expand our pre-K opportunities to meet the rapidly growing demand. It is our district's goal to offer high quality, full day preschool to all eligible students. Overall, the Early Childhood Education and Care Department has awarded, ready for this, Santa Fe Public Schools $10.9 million in our pre-K award for fiscal years 2022 through 2025. This grant will provide extended full-day pre-K services for 378 students and a district instructional coach for each fiscal year. Each year amounts to $2.7 million. Included is $141,000 to expand the pre-K to Amy Beal, which expects to serve 18 students. Amy Beal will offer pre-K services Monday through Thursday, 7:50 a.m. to 2:50 p.m., which met parent survey preferences. Currently, Santa Fe Public Schools has 19 pre-K classrooms. And the other exciting piece is that we don't have to apply every year. So that was a real plus. Also, we have an update on free bikes for El Camino Real Academy students. Ms. Price asked at the last board meeting if locks were included with the free bikes, and unfortunately they are not. But we could make blocks available for those students that may need them. They're not particularly expensive. And with that, I am done with our announcements.
Okay. Any questions on any of the topics Dr. Garcia touched on? Maybe we could go ahead,
sorry.
Secretary Bose.
Sorry. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Garcia. I know we didn't get to watch the graduation video, but this was my first time getting to participate in graduation ceremonies as a board member. And I just want to say what a joy it was and how just super impressed I am with all of the things happening in our high schools, and just really incredible. Great work to everyone. Congratulations to the students as well as the graduates of 2020 who got to participate this year after the mess of last year. So it was definitely a high point after the last year, and I'm really honored to be part of this. Thank you.
Yes, then maybe we can share that video in the email with the other video, because it would be great to see. And I echo what Secretary Bose said. It was really incredibly inspiring to see the graduation and the commencement ceremonies this year. And I don't know that, there's anything more beautiful than young people graduating from high school. It restored my faith in humanity in a lot of things. And it was really incredibly inspiring experience. And to see the joy from everybody, the families, the students, the staff members, the team was incredible. And it was really well done to everybody. I know it was a lot of work on top of a year with a lot of work, but it felt so good, and it was so important to celebrate that, and being able to do so in person was kind of more special than I think most of us expected. So congratulations to everybody involved.
Thank you. It would have been very sad to not have been able to see them in person. And it's what we work towards, is to get these kids graduated, and you get to see that, yay, we've got these wonderful people going out doing amazing things. And it's so tangible because a lot of times we can't really see the product of our work. And graduation is a very tangible event. So yes, we will. I apologize that we weren't able to see it. We'll bring it back next time. And, it's really interesting. We've had people give video presentations, time over time over time. And I don't know why the last few times we've run into this glitch with the audio, which is sort of odd. And so my challenge to my tech people is let's figure that out for my last meeting. I would really, really like it if we could show some videos where the audio worked. But I don't know. It's kind of those weird things that happen.
Yeah, well, April Pickerel is special magic with that because it always
We're gonna have to find out what she's doing, why it works for hers, but it hasn't been working. And it was working for our other principals. We've been making it happen, but just recently I noticed the last few meetings that we've had difficulties. So we've got to figure that one out.
Yes, thank you. Okay, moving on to our action items. We start with the consent agenda. Is there anything on the consent agenda that anyone wants to consider separately? Okay, is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Excuse me, I didn't get a chance to get in here.
Oh,
I want us to vote. I want us to vote separately on B.
Okay.
On B?
Yes.
There isn't a B on consent.
Oh, I'm sorry. I understand. Okay. I'm sorry.
Are you okay voting on the whole consent agenda at once?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Okay, and we'll go to B next.
Okay.
And the contracts, lots of them, summer work.
Yes.
It looks like. Okay, so Secretary Bose, I think you were making a motion, maybe just for the cleanliness of it all, do it again, if you would.
Madam President, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and second that. Any further discussion? We'll do a roll call vote on approval of the consent agenda. Secretary Bose?
Yes.
Board Member Price?
Yes.
And the president votes yes. Thank you very much. We've approved the consent agenda. Now we will consider separately item B, our second reading of new policy 353, student dental examinations for enrollment. Dr. Garcia.
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of the board. This evening we have Josh Granata, our General Counsel, and Susan O'Brien, our Director of Student Health and Wellness. And we believe that in the language we've talked about the rationale. This is a response to legislative action that has already taken place, has been signed by the governor. It is a requirement that we can't opt out of, that students will have dental exams to ensure that they have good oral health, right? And won't need extractions, that this is all about preventative care. And had a conversation today with Miss Anita Head and Miss O'Brien about all the partnerships and people that have reached out to us already that are ready to go to help provide this preventative dental care. So Mr. Granata.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Dr. Garcia. As you're aware, this is the second reading of the student dental examination for enrollment policy. And we've added a couple of items here from the last time that you guys took a look at this language of the policy. if you look at lines, it's the third paragraph, lines 12 through 14, we've added a paragraph in there to kind of explain the intent behind the legislation and the policy that's before you. It reads, this dental examination law is intended to improve oral health in school-aged children and more specifically prevent tooth decay. Tooth decay, if untreated, can lead to problems with speaking, eating, playing, and learning. And then if we can scroll down to the end of the policy, we've added a new section, Roman numeral 5V, prevention, and it states the district shall provide parents, guardians with information regarding the importance of oral health. And so we believe that the pieces that we've added to this policy and improve upon the law. Basically, we're going to try to educate families as best as possible by providing them with information about dental health. As Dr. Garcia said, this is law. It's not something that we can ignore. The reason that we drafted the policy is essentially to give the community notice. Oftentimes, community members will go to the board policies and try to learn more about the school district. This policy will inform families that there is this requirement in the state of New Mexico to have a dental examination prior to enrollment. I think it's important to realize as well that this is for new enrollment of students, and so that if students are already enrolled, they're not going to have to comply with this law. But as new students enroll into the district, they will be required to comply with the law. And so we'll stand for any questions that the board has.
Thank you, Mr. Granata. Questions from the board? Okay. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve this.
Thank you, Secretary Bozay. I'll go ahead and second. Any further discussion?
I would also like to say that I appreciate the work done on amending the policy. I understand that it is, compliance to the law, and that's important. I definitely, as I said before, appreciate that that we made it part of this policy to say that students will not be denied an opportunity to enroll because of their lack of dental visit. And it's great to hear that our Student Wellness Center and the nurses are already gathering community resources, because really we all know that dental care is important, and we just want everyone to have access to the care that they need. So I appreciate the changes and all the effort from the team. Thank you.
Okay, ready for a roll call vote on policy 353, dental examinations for enrollment. This is the second reading. Secretary Bozay.
Yes.
Board Member Price.
No.
And the president votes yes. We have passed that policy.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to action item C, reallocation of 2017 GO bond line items to fund early college opportunities construction. Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. You will be hearing, let's see, you have two action items: reallocation of 2017 GO bond line items to fund early college opportunities construction, and then reallocation of GO bond interest to fund early college opportunities construction. It's a little nuanced. Mr. Romero will explain C and D, or Ms. Wagner, I guess. I don't know which one of you will be doing that and explain the difference between C and D, and you have some slides. And this is a recommendation from the CRC, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Ms. Wagner?
That is correct. Good evening, Board President, Board Members, Superintendent Garcia. I'll explain the frame for the action items and then just go through the details with you. So the reason there are 2 action items, there's 2 funding sources. So we'll be taking separate action based on where we're recommending the funds come from. Ms. April Gallegos is here from the Citizens Review Committee to present to you their recommendation. After Mr. Romero and I, just to give you a little bit of a background on the Early College Opportunities Project and why it's in need of additional funds. Mr. Romero does have some slides for visuals, but I can just give you a high level summary and get to those if they come up. The Early College Opportunities Project is a part of the 2017 Master Plan priority projects. We were allocated about $10 million to renovate some classroom spaces, bring in all core classroom programming, to build a new office space, to build a new parking lot, deal with some utility issues, and really get it looking and feeling like a high school campus. So we had something called a maximum allowable construction cost of $7.5 million, which we had pre-allocated and priced to do that scope of work for early college. We bid the job late last calendar year. And there were some things happening in our country that hadn't been happening in prior bid years. So we didn't have a good comparison market to try and understand what construction costs would look like. But our cost estimators told us that they thought we could get the job done still within our allowable construction dollars. Unfortunately, it was near election time. We were in the middle of a pandemic. There were supply chain issues that people hadn't yet really pinned down. And 6 contractors bid the job, but we were over by almost $3 million in every bid. So it wasn't just that one contractor was off or that the scale of the work was somehow not studied correctly. That was the trend in the bid data. You can go ahead, Mr. Romero. So we went back to the drawing board and said, first of all, what's going on? Because we have a pretty good track record for bidding jobs and coming in within at least the 10% margin that we can negotiate contracts. And this was nowhere near 10%. So our research told us that we were fighting against the pandemic in a climate that the contractors were beginning to anticipate. And it's primarily a supply chain issue. And what that means is that things were slow to no production during the pandemic. We were not moving product out into the field and doing work, and people weren't producing because maybe they weren't bringing in their staff to their factories or mills or what have you. And so we now that there's an uptick again in activity and we're going back into construction days and moving out of the pandemic, we have what's called a supply chain issue. So there are more people wanting supplies and materials than there are available. And we don't know when we're going to close the gap on that. And so what contractors know is they're forecasting steel or wood or conduit, whatever they need, is at a higher cost and rising. Okay, so their bids are reflecting the available goods and what they understand about the price of the available goods. And if anybody's tried to do a home improvement project, even around your own home recently, a picket for a fence or a piece of lumber, I bought a couple of pieces of plywood, 2.5 times maybe what I would have paid a year ago. So that's more or less what we're seeing. And so we have to adapt. So we brought this to the Citizens Review Committee. And well, first we did one other thing. We asked the architect to really sharpen the pencil and make sure they 100% had the drawings as tight as they could be. Because what happens also when contractors bid our jobs is that if the drawings have anything of question or a scope that is a little extensive or undetailed, they'll even round up their bids even more. And so we just wanted to tighten up our drawings, tighten up our scope, say, is everything here exactly the way we want it to be, and deliver the best program to early college opportunities. So we did that work. We engineered about $250,000, but that's not 3 million. So we brought to the Citizens Review Committee that refined scope, which we believe will get the best bid possible. And then we brought to them a recommendation in the categories you see here tonight for how to reallocate monies. And we're in a good place in our bond cycle. We had some remaining balance in some other categories. You can see them here. And we also have a good news story of our bond monies accumulating some interest while it's in the bank. And so we had some money to draw down on that will not affect other projects. So we asked for a total of 3 million, and Ms. Gallegos is here tonight to explain to you how that vote went with the Citizens Review Committee. And of note, the Citizens Review Committee has been extremely supportive of the Early College Opportunities Project. They actually asked us when they heard the bids were over a couple of meetings ago, when and where can you find money so this project can carry on. It's a really important project to our community, to the school. It was a big part of our 2017 bond election. We look forward to continuing the work and appreciate the support of the Citizens Review Committee. So Ms. Gallegos, if you could come on now and explain the allocations and your recommendation for the board.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Superintendent Wagner. Appreciate that. So Board President Noble, board members, and Superintendent Garcia, on May 12th of 2021, just last month, the summary that Deputy Superintendent Wagner just presented was also presented to the Citizens Review Committee. And as you can see, the summary outlines the need for additional support for the construction of the ECO Phase 1. So the construction management team recommends that we utilize $1,500,000 of the 2017 GO bond interest to provide additional support for the ECO Phase 1. And then after some discussion by the Citizens Review Committee, we recommended to reallocate that interest and move that $1,500,000 over to the project from bond interest. And then during the same meeting, the second item, the construction team further recommended that we reallocate a total of $1,934,408 from other projects in the 2017 GO bond, as outlined in the presentation you just saw. And so the Citizens Review Committee also unanimously approved that recommendation to move those funds and reallocate them to the ECO Phase 1 construction budget. So thank you, and I'll stand for questions.
Thank you very much. Questions from the board? I always wonder what was, not being one of the representatives on the CRC, what was the substance of the CRC discussion and any significant concerns raised on this?
So fortunately, there weren't any significant concerns on this particular project. I think just some of the discussions that came up were just to ensure that we could reallocate those funds, especially from the other projects that had already been allocated in the 2017 GO bond, just to ensure that those projects were entirely covered and we weren't going to be shorting them in any way. And we were reassured of that on each line item in each project. So that's part of the reason why it was a unanimous decision.
Madam President, may I clarify something too?
Yes, please.
That your action item C is to reallocate 2017 GO bond items, right? which we just talked about. When you go to item D, it's about some reallocation of interest that we had for, you know, how all the money goes
the
to the bank,
1.5
right?
million
To be
sounds
able
like.
to cover that other piece. So I just want to make sure that, you know, everyone is aware of that. And, you know, ECO, as Ms. Wagner said, was very prominent, right? That $10 million promise, I think it was at 10 million in the first GEO bond, that promise was kept and made, but now we're going to be able to explain how that is being done. And we have GEO bond, it's in the next GEO bond, right? The next phase of ECO, we talked to you about that. And this program has really grown and proven itself, and its future is really bright. So we just wholeheartedly recommend that you approve this and support the CRC's recommendation. Like, you know, when you talk about how things look really easy, even though there was unanimous agreement, I think that the CRC did their due diligence in terms of putting staff through their paces on this issue.
Madam President.
Yes, go ahead, Secretary Boze.
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate what April said, as well as Dr. Garcia, as someone who sits on a CRC, that they are incredibly good stewards of the community's tax dollars, and they really watch carefully to make sure that projects are getting done, that money isn't being wasted, and that you know, we're kind of living up to the promises that we've made to the community. So I just again want to, you know, reiterate how much I appreciate all of their hard work and their careful recommendations that they give.
And I just want to return to what Ms. Gallegos had said about not shorting the other projects. So it does sound as if the CRC was satisfied that where there was, and it sounds like it's about 1.5 million reallocation and 1.5 million from interest in order to have the $3 million increase, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Well, it's actually, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's actually 1.5 in bond interest and a little over 1.9 in reallocation of line items.
Okay.
So the total is actually 3.4 million. There was an additional slide we didn't have a chance to cover that talked about soft costs. Those are like furniture, redrawing for the architect. All that goes up when the price increase of the construction costs. So that had to be accounted for too.
Could we see the last slide that we saw again? Just
okay, let me share the screen real quick.
To go back to that. And then I think I lumped too much into that, but Ms. Gallegos, you did say that the CRC was satisfied that the other projects were not being shorted.
We were, yes.
Okay, I see. It's the maximum allowable construction cost that was 3 million and the soft cost that was 0.4.
And Madam President, if I may.
Please.
So the other projects are on slide 5 of the presentation. Mr. Romero, if you wanted to pull that up. But as you can see that they are sustainability, the elementary school study, drainage, and construction management team. So I think the construction management team did a really good job of scouring the 2017 GO bond and finding every penny from other projects that was available, and without really making any change to any of the ongoing projects.
Okay. And the elementary school study will still go on, even $700,000 less.
I think Board President Noble, if I could clarify on that item. In 2016, when we were doing the facility master plan, it was around that time we were presenting the notion that a couple of our centrally located elementary schools needed to be considered for rebuild, significant rebuild. And this money was set aside thinking that we would be ready to draw the rebuilding of one of those elementary schools, and we're really not in a position to do that. So that is why that money is being allocated to a project that is more imminent, something we need to take care of now.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wenger. Appreciate that. Okay, any other questions, discussion from the board? Thank you, Mr. Romero. Appreciate the slides. What's the pleasure of the board?
Madam President, should we be making individual motions to approve those items?
I would think we could make a motion as it's all together to do the two items at the same time.
Okay, then I would like to make a motion to approve both items C and D, the reallocation of the 2017 GO bond funds, as well as the allocation of some of that bond interest to go towards the eco project.
I second.
Okay, great. And so it's just to clarify, it's the reallocation of the line items and then the interest. So we have a motion by Secretary Bozay and a second by Board Member Price. Any further discussion? We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote then. Secretary Bozay?
Yes.
Board Member Price?
Yes.
And the president votes yes. Thank you very much, Ms. Gallegos, for being here, and please give our thanks to the CRC, and thank you to our board members who serve on the CRC and all of the staff who work so hard to get all of this information and provide the details and keep things going. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Thank you, Ms. Gallegos, and give our thanks to the CRC, and we appreciate the board's approval.
Okay, moving on to action item E, Memorandum of Understanding between Santa Fe Public Schools and Santa Fe Federation of School Employees for fiscal year 2020-2021. Dr. Garcia.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President, and members of the board. Finally got here. It was a long journey, but Mr. Romero presented the counteroffer and was accepted by the Santa Fe Federation of School Employees. Mr. Romero, if we can help me here, they agreed, right, to the 1.5%. Oh, no, it wasn't 1.5%. It was 1%, correct, Mr. Romero?
Yes, that's correct. So that had already been instituted. They further agreed to the $14 an hour minimum wage for those that are under that wage. And then also a $500 stipend.
Well, that was a retention stipend. And so it's very similar to the one that was done with the other employee group. Now, obviously, if they do not complete the year, they would not be eligible for that. But we do have agreement on that. And we recommend approval.
Okay. And I believe I saw that Mr. Olguin was here. Mr. Olguin, do you want to address the board or this item?
I think am I in?
You are unmuted. Go ahead.
I'm doing it on the phone. That's why it's a little harder to do it on the phone than it is on the computer. Okay. Hi, board president, board members, Superintendent Garcia. Yeah, as careful thinking, we just went ahead and approved this MOU, and we just want to get people paid, and they're just waiting to be paid, and the $500 stipend, and and all that. The other part of it really doesn't help some of my guys that have been here a while. The $14 an hour, it helps some, but not all. So I was trying to do a little bit more for the rest, but I guess we just got to move forward, and we'll take what we have here for now. And I
Well, we
appreciate you.
appreciate your partnership, and we also want to get people paid. And thanks for being here. And I know that having that $14 an hour has been important to the board, and we'll keep going and trying to do better. And we so appreciate the work of everyone on the Santa Fe Public School team and those covered by this agreement. And thank you for working on it.
And I also want to, Madam President, I also want to thank Mr. Romero and as well as Mr. Olguin. And now the work begins for the 21-22 contract. So this was finishing up 2021.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and move approval of item E, this memorandum of understanding between the Santa Fe Public Schools and the Santa Fe Federation of School Employees for fiscal year 2020-2021.
I will second that.
Thank you, Secretary Bose. Any further discussion? We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Secretary Bose?
Yes.
Board Member Price?
Yes.
And the president votes yes. Thanks again, Mr. Olguin. Thank you very much, Mr. Romero, and everybody who worked on getting us here.
Thank you. We appreciate your approval.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Action item F, 2021-2022 Board of Education meeting calendar. Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. The calendar is there available, very similar to this year. It does not have any meetings for the month of July, follows the same pattern. So it's pretty much set. Now, obviously, as we have in the past, we can cancel meetings. If you add them, they wind up being special meetings, is all. You have to give the same amount of notice. If you have an emergency and there's certain criteria for an emergency, then you can do a 24-hour notice. I believe Mr. Granata is available for any questions that you may have regarding meetings and requirements.
Madam President?
Go ahead, Secretary Bose.
I had a quick question on the January schedule. It didn't look like the first and third Thursday. They were back to back, the 13th and the 20th. And I just wondered if that was a typo or if that was intentional.
I think it's tough, Madam President, to be able to get everything ready and announced or when they have a big winter break like that and then the first meeting in January. But do you know specifically, or Josh or Alma, what is that the reason?
Yes, that is the reason, Dr. Garcia. It's just the time frame of us coming back, having those 2 weeks.
Okay. It's traditionally been done that way. Then we have to do, it just gets difficult trying to reach board members. It just gets complicated during that holiday. People are traveling and whatnot.
And this, excuse me, this calendar has been checked over for holidays?
I'm assuming so, Madam President. I don't know for a fact. Alma, did you guys check for any conflict with the holiday?
I did, Dr. Garcia. Since the meetings are now on Thursday, it just became a little bit easier. We just went with what we had last year.
So we don't have it like on December, like, I don't know, well, we wouldn't have a Good Friday. A third, I mean, there's holidays, right? Religious holidays, Jewish holidays, Indigenous days, feast days and whatnot. Off the top of my head, I don't see a conflict, but that doesn't mean there isn't one there.
Should we put this aside till the next meeting, table it and have it checked?
I'm happy to do that. Anybody else?
I'm fine with that as well.
So, Madam President, Ms. Behar, so like November 18th, just check that it doesn't conflict with, Thanksgiving, November 4th. I don't know if that's an election day, if we're going to be closed. So work with Mr. Granata and just look at them one more time. I personally did not do that.
Yes, those have been checked, but we can go ahead and recheck again.
Oh, so you're saying you have checked for conflicts with holidays?
Yeah. Yes, Member Price, it has been checked. The 18th and the 4th, I know we do have election, so they wouldn't interfere with anything related to that, or Jewish holidays.
Madam President, what I said is I personally didn't check them. So the staff probably may have, and according to Mr. Behar, they did, but I was just clarifying with Ms. Price, I did not review it.
Well, if it's been checked, then I think we can go ahead and vote.
I think so too. And if we come up against something significant, of course, we do have the option to move it.
We've been known to do that.
We have been known to do that. Okay, is there a motion? I'll go
Madam
ahead and
President,
go
I
ahead.
move to approve the Board of Education meeting calendar for 2021, 2022.
Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, Secretary Bozay. Thank you, Board Member Price. Any further discussion? We'll do a roll call vote as ever. Secretary Bozay,
Yes.
Board Member Price,
Yes.
and the President votes yes.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board.
Moving on, we have our action item G, 2021-2022-1 open meetings resolution.
Mr. Granado, you want to introduce this?
Madam President, board members, Dr. Garcia, before you tonight is your Open Meetings Act resolution. And as you most likely are aware, the Open Meetings Act requires boards to pass such a resolution on an annual basis. And now is the time for you to consider passing your resolution. This resolution is largely unchanged from previous Open Meetings Act resolutions. It provides what the board believes is adequate notice for regular meetings, special meetings, et cetera, and all of the notice requirements comply with law. This resolution is flexible enough to still allow for the virtual meetings as we're doing right now. As you're probably aware, the Public Education Department is still recommending that boards have their meetings virtually. I imagine that'll change eventually, but as of now, we're still allowed to conduct virtual meetings, and that's really about it. I'll stand for any questions if the board has any.
Any questions from the board?
No questions. I move to approve.
Okay, I'll go ahead and second. Any further discussion? We'll do a roll call vote. Secretary Bozay,
Yes.
Board Member Price,
Yes.
and the President also votes yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Granata.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board.
Okay, I think that concludes our action items. So we will move on to a board discussion and possible action.
Can you move that slide, Alma, please?
We have, first of all, I would ask that we postpone item A under board discussion and possible action, which is fiscal year 2021-2022 board member committee representatives, audit committee, CRC, partners in ed, and New Mexico School Boards Association, as we don't have two of our members with us tonight. Any objections to that?
I agree.
Okay. Mr. Granata, can we just move on, or do you want us to vote on that?
I'm sorry, Madam President, I stepped out for a second.
You don't have to vote. You can move on.
We'll just
Sorry
move
about
on. That's all right. We're postponing that item.
Okay.
Fiscal year 2021-2022 board committee appointments, the audit committee and citizens review committee. And I would just say that we should, as we did last year, keep this on for a while, if we can, Ms. Bahar, until we get the full appointments from board members. Board members, do we have appointments to do to audit or CRC at this stage?
Madam President, I do not have any at this stage, but I will be prepared at the next meeting.
Okay, well, I would like to renew or renominate Oscar Rodriguez to the audit committee and April Gallegos to the CRC at this point. So unless there are other nominations coming forward, I'll go ahead and make a motion to nominate Oscar Rodriguez to audit and April Gallegos to CRC.
I will second that.
Okay, we'll go ahead and take a roll call vote. Secretary Bozay?
Yes.
Board Member Price?
Yes.
And the president votes yes.
Madam
Thank you very
President.
much. Yeah, go ahead.
If you could please just refresh my memory whether or not our appointees to either of these committees need to be in our district. I think they don't. Okay.
No,
I
they
just
don't.
wanted to make sure. Thank you very much.
Yes, they don't.
And as we progress through this process, like next time, Alma will have that filled in. So you'll have still one left for CRC, Ms. Noble. And as we keep that way, you can just see where you're lacking. If you have any questions about attendance or concerns or anything, let us know and we'll get that information for you. Or if you're not sure who your appointment is, we can provide you that information as well.
Thank
I think that was done already, right, Alma? At least who they appointed.
Yes, that is correct. It was sent via email for both of for the audit and the CRC.
Madam President, we also do have their attendance over the last year. That's in the same email. So I encourage everyone to review that and note that there has been a vacancy on the audit committee for the duration of the year.
Yes. Few years now. Okay. thank you very much. And Ms. Bahar, whenever it strikes you in advance of our next board meeting, maybe the week of, it would be great to get a reminder email on this so that we keep pushing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, board discussion and possible action, July 2021 meetings. I'm pretty sure we just covered that with the calendar. Am I wrong?
Yes, but I think at the time you had asked for this to be added to the agenda and it's there. Mr. Chavez is here. I did ask him about July meetings. He did not seem to feel like he needed it. So obviously he's here. He can speak for himself too, I believe. But is that correct, Mr. Chavez?
That is correct. I think we wanted to give everybody a little break, a little time away to kind of rejuvenate and get ready for August, but also giving us a time to get our team onboarded and ready for August.
Okay, good. And I don't think we need to act on this as we acted on the calendar. So thank you very much. Appreciate you thinking about that, Mr. Chavez. And I think we could probably use the break. Board meetings. Okay, moving on to item 11, presentations. I've been looking forward to this. Our annual report from the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Engagement is item A. Dr. Garcia.
Thank you. So this is our first year. If you recall, it was the Office of Community Engagement, and we expanded that to bring in equity and diversity and gave it additional duties. And when we created that department, one of the requirements that I thought would be important is to present an annual report. As you know, Crystal Levada has served as the deputy and Dr. James Lujan as the Chief Community Engagement Officer. Dr. Lujan is retiring. He's also currently doing translations, and thought it would be good for our deputy chief to make the bulk of the presentation. She is coming in beginning July 1. She also has been very busy working on a lot of the work within the department along with Dr. Lujan, and is currently in the process of working with the committee to hire the new deputy chief to replace her. So I'm going to do the first 2 or 3 slides. The vision, of the work that needed to be done this year was to identify, recognize, and support our at-risk student populations in supporting the departments in their work, to ensure students, parents, and staff had a point of contact for equity concerns or OCR violations or any other kind of concern, sexual harassment, discrimination, etc. Ensure equity and diversity efforts across the district, coordinate equity and diversity across departments, encourage and expand stakeholder engagement at the district level and within school sites, provide an annual report based on at-risk markers to allow for data-driven district decisions. And so they also managed and coordinated the efforts around our community, our Equity and Diversity Council. Also, community engagement is within this department. So our communication, and you heard today, well, you didn't hear from me. I had an interview with the reporter, but you did hear from Cody last week about how we are working to improve communication. We're piloting Remind, a new platform that I think will be better received by parents, has the ability to translate over 90 languages. Our community bulletin that's coming out on a weekly basis. All of these things come under this department. And so this is the current structure of the department. As you know, Sabra Romero, who does our volunteer and event coordination, Joseph West, family and community engagement specialist, And then the social service specialist is a social worker, Ms. Ibarra, I believe, and our administrative assistant. And then Oscar Chavez is an attendance coach. So let's go on to the next slide.
Superintendent Garcia, I can step in here if you would like.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent Garcia, Madam President, members of the board, thank you for allowing me to be on tonight. You know, despite a challenging year that we've had, I'm extremely proud of our team. We've had a number of accomplishments, and so that's what I will start off with tonight. Starting just at the top, and I put this in alphabetical order, our attendance success initiatives, we were given through this school year to come into alignment with the Attendance for Success Act of 2019. In doing so, we created a very structured outreach and intervention process, which allowed for really strong alignment with school sites and the district office. And with this year, we were also able to partnerships in the community with our local behavioral mental health wellness agencies, and then our partners that often get our attendance referrals like teen court and juvenile probation. And we really hit this from a very positive, proactive, wraparound service type model. In regards to community schools, as you know, this board passed the community schools resolution in March of 2021. We continue to operate our community schools implementation grants at Cesar Chavez Elementary School and Santa Fe High. And in addition, we were awarded 3 new planning grants, which we will start off this July and into next school year for Kearney Elementary, Milagro Middle School, and Nino Otero. We have very strong equity councils, which we
Ms. Ibarra, can you just mention though, Ms. Ibarra, though, can you mention though that we do have communities in schools at, what is it, 14 schools? Or is it 11?
We do have them at 10 schools.
10 schools. So
yes,
now
CIS
when you add that, I mean, because these aren't the only schools that are operating as community schools. So we have the additional 10 that the board has funded for the last 3 years.
Yes, absolutely. And Communities in Schools is such a strong partner. We also took this time to really start to align our efforts and see what this looks like as we grow the model going forward. So we're excited to continue those partnerships and to expand on other partnerships that we have in the school sites. In terms of the equity councils, we have very strong equity councils that remained intact during this time. So the Superintendent's Diversity and Equity Council, Superintendent Garcia started when she came in 5 years ago, still includes 79 participants made up of various stakeholders. In addition, in order to fulfill the Yazzie Martinez requirements, we created the Executive Equity Council, which includes 18 participants that are very specific stakeholders. During this period of being in a remote status, we did work on items such as the culturally and linguistically responsive framework and the initiatives that came right out of PED. This was our first group of stakeholders that we included in the ESSER conversations, the ESSER funding conversations. So again, we remain strong with our equity councils. In October of this year, we launched the Help You Homework Hotline. This operated weekdays from 4 to 6, included the 27 community volunteers and supported more than 400 students and parents during this school year.
And I would say that these probably, if we were going to rename this slide, it should be highlights, because there are so many more accomplishments from this department. So, I mean, these truly are really highlights, actually. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. The interdepartmental communication, we try to maintain it as strong as possible given this remote setting. That included the superintendent's office, student wellness, the Native American Student Services, the Language and Culture Department, CNI, Again, Dr. Garcia mentioned earlier, we work very closely with General Counsel and with Cody Donarski in the communications area. So we maintain that throughout the year. This year, we also launched the Pen Pal program in August. This ended up serving 74 students and 69 volunteers, of which 288 letters were written between the students and volunteers. The safety net efforts, which was a board directed effort coming out of last year, we really were able to focus on and strengthen this year. Part of this was including a whole new section of Power Schools so that we utilize it for early identification purposes. In doing so, when we were called upon by the PED to account for those 533 students, we were able to do so in a very efficient and quick manner because we had the systems in place already. We also, through this process, figured out an end of year early outreach protocol. So our social service specialist, along with our 2 attendance coaches, are currently doing early outreach efforts, planning for next school year to make sure that those students that may have struggled this year have the opportunity to succeed going into next school year. Under this, we also strengthened the process for hardship transfers and GED requests. As we mentioned, one of our partners earlier, CIS, we maintained strong community partnerships with a number of partners over this time. The last highlight here is for our volunteer program. We maintained 450 active volunteers, 136 of those are bilingual. During this time, we still continue to get their own professional development training, which really focused on areas of academic growth for students, helping students succeed academically, including the online and remote focus, and then a focus on culture and diversity growth.
I wanted to mention too, and again, we can't mention everything, but I think one that is really important is that we piloted this year the Remind app. And I think Mr. Donarski mentioned that last time, that will better allow us to better communicate with parents, where parents can choose and get their best way of being communicated with, be it email, text message, or robocall. So if you hate robocalls, you won't ever get them again. You'll just get a text message. But this will be able to be translated for the parent over 90 languages. So I think that's going to be a real boon, because right now we are only getting it out in English and Spanish. And so those are just a few. The bulletin also that is being produced, again, a partnership with the superintendent's office, but yet one more way of trying to better communicate with our families. And out of community engagement, has a history of engaging the community. When we did Project North Star, to develop our guiding principles, what are attributes of the graduate and whatnot. All of this came from out of our community engagement efforts with various focus groups going out into the community. And we like to continue that. We were doing drop-ins with the superintendent. And of course, like everything else that got derailed with COVID-19, those face-to-face kind of outreach meetings came to a halt. We did do quite a few town halls, but there's nothing like really being out in the communities talking with people. And hopefully that will be able to resume post-COVID.
And that's a good segue into our parent equity survey, because it kind of hits on a couple of those things. I did want to take just a couple minutes to explain what we did here. This was done alongside Cody Donarski. We sent this out in 2 methods: via text, where parents could click on the link and take the survey, and then through email. But the Parent Equity Survey was supported by Title I Parent Academy. We partnered with Panorama Education, and we surveyed the following school sites. Hold on, let me minimize myself. Aspen Community School, Capitol High School, Cesar Chavez, Chaparral Elementary, Edward Ortiz Middle School, El Camino Real, Gonzalez Community School, Milagro Middle School, Nino Otero, Ramirez Thomas, Santa Fe High School, and Wood Gormley. We tried to get a good sampling of Title I schools. We also included Wood Gormley here, though they are not Title I. Essentially, we asked a certain number of background questions, and there were 5 topic areas that made up a total of 30 questions. These topic areas included additional family assistance, student needs, learning behaviors, cultural awareness and actions, and family engagement. We conducted this survey twice, once in December 2020 with 1,401 participants, and again in the spring in May, which had 926 participants. I won't read everything in this slide, but I'll give you a chance to just look it over. These were the different areas covered in each of the categories.
And this also, I think, could be helpful as we look at ESSER funding. I think it could help inform some of that, right?
Yes.
Because we have done that outreach.
Yeah, and it's a pretty impressive response rate.
It really was. Really was quite amazing.
Yeah, and so what I did on this slide was I just took the highlights from each of the areas. Essentially, what we were looking for was those highlights, but also that opportunity to continue to strengthen or just continue the parent support already in place. So we can keep that in mind as I go through these different areas. In terms of the additional family assistance, we actually saw growth from the first to second semester, and parents were reporting growth in terms of housing stability and managing school schedules. So they were feeling better about it in second semester. In regards to the African American, Caucasian, and 12th grade parents, they reported very strong feeling supported in the family assistance areas. Spanish-speaking families and American Indian families just reported a need that they would like to continue additional family assistance in those areas that I showed you on the slide before. Under student needs, this was by far the strongest increase out of any of these topic areas. And this also correlated with the remote option and then this option to return in person in the second semester. So we saw an increase in all question areas that we asked regarding student needs, but the strongest positive growth occurred in social emotional well-being, peer relationships, and adult school-based relationships. Again, keep in mind, this was the second one went out at a time when students were already able to return to school. So we do think that these increased positively because of that. In general, parents rated the academic growth as a priority for their student. And this was especially true for 8th graders or male students noted in the survey. For learning behaviors, this actually remained pretty consistent between first and second semester. And learning behaviors included some such things as efforts, organization, and so on. We did find that positive learning behaviors were correlated with students who participated in summer programming or activities. Parents in general noted that they would like support in assisting their child with organizational skills. For cultural awareness and action, parents reported that they felt there was a stronger diversity curriculum in the second semester as opposed to the first. But we did identify that we need more information around this section because a lot of parents reported that they were unsure of the curriculum being taught here. Family engagement the questions were very specific to whether or not parents were involved in a PTA, a SAC, fundraising activities, or other on-site activities. The response rate as far as participation, it was fairly low. So we decided we do need more data as we return to full-time in-person learning.
And we also recognize that it's tough for parents to be involved in that manner. Especially, you're working, you're trying to survive, you've got a lot of other issues. And so trying to figure out that we can communicate with parents, find out their needs, even if maybe they're not part of a PTA, right? And some of the parents that have the time to be involved in PTAs may not be suffering or having some of these other issues that we picked up here. The other implication from this great work that they did is, because this is our first year with this department doing this in this manner. And what I would suggest, obviously, as we continue to update our work plans with Cabinet and SS Cabinet, that the various departments that this data touches, that they incorporate that in their work, right? So if we see that kids need more help with organizational skills, how do we build that in, right, in terms of professional development for teachers, about how do you help kids, right, to be with their organizational skills. It's not something that is in the standards necessarily per se, but is important for kids to be successful in school. So it was just really exciting to see what the department has done with so much of this, given the crazy year that we had. And I don't know if it's in the highlights or not. I don't remember, Ms. Ibarra, but the outreach that you led in trying to find those missing students and working with staff and the home visiting, I would say, we talk about Santa Fe Public Schools being a flagship, that was remarkable work. And I'm surprised you didn't put it in your highlights, but that truly was remarkable.
Well, thank you for that, Dr. Garcia. I briefly mentioned that we were able to locate those students. My team, again, is just amazing, and it's a whatever it takes type of model, and we really want every student to have the opportunity to be successful. So thank you. And my last slide here is just over next steps for our department. Come July, we are planning on doing a strategic framework in order to align with the district strategic plan. We're going to utilize the survey data that we just talked about in order to create additional focus areas. We would like to expand our outreach, as you just mentioned, Dr. Garcia. So we'd like to conduct this survey with additional stakeholders, parents again, but also students, staff, and community members. We want to continue to strengthen and align our interdepartmental initiatives. Again, these are the offices that I noted earlier. There were a couple of things that we were ambitiously pursuing at the beginning of the year that we weren't able to fully develop because of the craziness of this year. One of those was to establish a new student, refugee, and immigrant support services. So we plan to do that in the upcoming year. We were also set to take on the disciplinary hearing process. And given that we were remote all year, there were no disciplinary hearings that occurred. So we are prepared to take that on in the upcoming year. We were also planning to assist with professional development and training opportunities. We are looking to strengthen and increase that this coming school year. In addition, we're going to continue to support the variety of acts that are out there that aim to increase equity, diversity, and engagement. Those include, but aren't limited to, the Attendance for Success Act, the Community Schools Act, the Hispanic Education Act, and the Indian Education Act. So at this time, I will take questions.
Thank you, Ms. Ibarra. Really great stuff. And those surveys results sound really good. Pretty right
They've
on.
done an amazing job with engagement, given the barriers. It just really makes me so proud.
Exceptional stuff. Questions from the board?
Madam President, I do not have any questions, but I did want to express gratitude for that presentation and, more importantly, the work that they've been doing, because it's very, very impressive. And I look forward to all the wonderful work that will continue to happen under Ms. Ibarra next year. Thank you.
Yeah, I just keep thinking, like, again, they're just highlights. Like, I was thinking of the volunteer fairs and the volunteer training. And I mean, it just goes on and on and on of, the small little department and all the work that they're doing and how it touches, so many other areas in the district.
Absolutely. And getting that many bilingual volunteers.
And that was very intentional,
very
right?
impressive.
We had talked about that we needed to expand on that. And I think, the next big goal I would say would be more Indigenous families, right? Working, getting them, finding more volunteers to work with our Indigenous families and students. I'm sure there'll be partnership with Ms. Davis on that.
Yes, absolutely.
I guess my question, Ms. Ibata, is, what can the board do to support your work? And you can think about this and ask us, I think Secretary Bozay and Dr. Gonzalez and I often try to amplify outreach on social media. But I guess it's also maybe just giving you an open invitation to make asks of us. We like to engage with our constituents and understand a lot of what the reality is for our families, our many diverse families. And so please use us or consider us as arms for outreach as well.
Thank you, Madam President.
And on that point, Madam President, if I may, I would like to suggest that it doesn't happen unless you make it intentional. And it's just, for example, we intentionally said, we've got to get more bilingual volunteers. We've got to be intentional about it. Reach out to the organizations that can help us. We need to make it intentional now about really expanding with Indigenous families. And I would say if you add it to the work plan to help increase board engagement with their community, if that's what the board would like, then you could plan certain events and coordinate with board members to help them better, in a very formal, intentional way, have more engagement with members of their districts. And they could help facilitate that and collect the data for you and work with you on that if that is the pleasure of various board members, right? And could be added to the work plan so that it does happen. If that is something the board would really like.
Hallelujah. I think a number of us would love that.
So if they put it in the work plan, it'll happen.
Marvelous. Well, that's your department.
Again, thank you to the board. I appreciate that support.
Thank you very much.
So much. And give Dr. Lujan our deepest thanks and gratitude for his hard work as well.
Yes, that is very important. And we hope he's hearing this, but because it does look like he's here. But Dr. Lujan, you've done extraordinary work, and we are incredibly grateful for all of the progress and good things that you have brought the Santa Fe Public Schools. I probably cannot overstate how many times I have heard from members of the community their appreciation and admiration for your work and listening, and people really understand that you hear them, and it has been a real benefit to the Santa Fe Public Schools, and you've been an incredible asset. Thank you very, very much. Okay, moving along to our next, I lost my agenda on the screen, our next presentation, which is
our interim assessments.
Oh, okay, wonderful.
Yes, I want to, before I pass this on to Associate Superintendent Rael, who is making one of her last presentations as she is retiring for the first time. So there's plenty of opportunity for return and multiple retirements. And Dr. Suchan Sarangarm, who I hope isn't going anywhere, but staying with us and doing great work. We, Ms. Sink and I, we bemoan all the time that the state, one, had changed assessments, two, that we didn't get to assess this year and the year before, because we felt like we were on a trajectory of improvement. And we feel like robbed that we just didn't get the data and weren't able to. But one of the things that's real important for our families and our community to know is that we did formative assessments this year, the beginning of the year, mid-year, and the end of the year. And so we haven't been flying blind and know where our kids are at. And so it's important, a repeated message. So that's why I'm saying it ahead of time. And then they'll hear it again, and you'll probably hear me say it at the end, that we have not been flying blind. We know where our kids are at. And I've often said that Dr. Sarangarm is our secret weapon when we hired him about data. Working on our graduation rates was also about data quality and looking at targeting where our students are and being able to analyze that data and to work with our teachers on that was of critical importance. And now we'll have to wait till we get new data from the new assessment next year to again begin to target those power standards that is important for our kids to master as they progress. So with all that said, I'm going to send it over to our superstars, Ms. Rael and Ms. Dr. Sarangarm, for this presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia, President Noble, members of the board, and Dr. Garcia. It's Dr. Sarangarm and my pleasure to present to you this evening the interim assessment results. And Neil, if you'll go ahead and advance the slide, please. Thank you. So this evening, we're going to talk about the interim measure of student success, and it's fondly known in the schools as IMASA. And it is an interim measure that's, as Dr. Garcia indicated, given at the beginning, middle, and end of the year for grades 3 through 8. What interim assessments do is really provide teachers with good information about how students are progressing through the curriculum over the course of the school year. And it does inform areas of strength and trends in student performance that do matter when we're making instructional shifts in the classroom with students. It also helps students with additional support mechanisms that we have in place through SAT or interventionists. This slide is really designed to kind of show you how this rolled out this school year. It was a new test for Santa Fe Public Schools and statewide. We learned a lot. We know student testing environments are not school testing environments. We did a lot of work ahead of time with our leaders and teachers and school testing coordinators to make sure that they were well trained and prepared to facilitate these assessments at home. So we did test or assess at home at the beginning of the year in September, again in December. And then the end of the year was a little different because we did have students at school, and that did give us a different type of opportunity to work with our students on the IMASA assessment. What we really will highlight this evening, and Dr. Sarangarm is coming up here in a minute, is that he has worked super hard, as Dr. Garcia says. He is that secret weapon, and creating customized reports that district leaders and school leaders and teachers can use. We'll discuss that with you here about what are some of the features in those reports, but really they are designed to give information about individual students and the sub-skills that they can focus on that we learned from the assessment might need some more support. There are teacher, school, and district profile reports. And so we'll share some of that with you this evening. But Dr. Sarangarm, I think you're up next to give us some of the results of these assessments over the course of this school year. And then I'll join you after that.
Yes, ma'am. Madam President Noble, member of the board, and Madam Superintendent Dr. Garcia, the overall achievement level for interim assessment result has 3 categories, including needs support. Can you click it, please? Yeah, thank you. There are three categories: needs support, near target, and on target. Can you click it, please? Next. Yeah. And this is overall. And we have sub-skill, please. Yeah. Or domain, they have 3 levels: 2 above, at, near, below. But today we're going to emphasize on overall achievement, which is on target, near target, and needs support. Next. Students who have received on target, which means they are proficient or advanced in that subject area. On target category indicate mastery of grade level, expectation, or standard. And Ms. Ryle is going to talk about that later on. What does it mean on that one? And students who are near target display partial mastery of grade level, expectation, and students who need support display limited mastery of grade expectation. Next. Let me share with the result. First is the reading result. Students will access 3 times per year, as Ms. Ryle mentioned, including beginning of the year, BOY, middle of the year, MOY, and the end of the year, EOY. The percent proficiency on reading BOY is 48% and increased 3% at the end of the year. The margin of error for percent proficient is about 3%. What does it mean? Ideally, if we assess the kid with this test 100 times, 95% of the time, the reading proficiency is going to be 48 to 54. Sometimes we call this one confidence interval. The 51% of the student in the district were proficient in reading, which exceed the 40% target based on 2023 strategic plan. We said it's 40, but we have about 51%. Again, that with the standard error, we may have 48 or 54 independent. Next slide. The percent proficient in reading have increased from BOY to EOY almost every grade except 4th grade. The 8th grade level has increased 12%. The end of the year result indicate 3rd grade have the highest percent proficient of 68%. Next, please. Students in grade 3 to 6 have at least 50% proficient, grade 3 to 6. Students in grade 7 and 8 are approaching district target. Comparing the IMESA with the 2018-19 PARC result, if you look at on the top, the blue color, you will see that generally, we see that the IMESA have higher percent proficient compared to the PARC.
So may I again, they're 2 very different tests though. So keep that in mind. All right. I mean, you really can't compare them. They're not in the same way that they're apples to apples. They're not. However, this is the best data that we have because we don't have a standardized assessment like the PARC because of what happened with COVID last year. And again, this year with the pandemic, those assessments were suspended given, because of the waivers with the state. However, as we look at the indicators here, remember that we made a big focus on read first, right? And ensuring that kids would be reading by 3rd grade. that was a pivotal grade. And if we look at up above for third grade, we saw 32% proficient on Park. Again, it's not a true apples to apples comparison. However, we see 68% of third graders being on target on the MASA. And so, I mean, that's a good sign. It's a good predictor that most likely, if they had been taking a standardized assessment, we have a greater percentage of kids hitting those targets to be reading by third grade. And it's really quite exciting and significant. And because we have really, I mean, it's not like we're not teaching the other grades, of course we are, but really knowing that reading by third grade is a pivotal year. And so if kids are reading by third grade, you're going to continue to see these other grades every following year continue to grow. And so the strategy is working in reading. It's, you know, it takes time for it to build, but that progression is there. And Ms. Sink and I both wish we were a lot younger so that we could see this continue to grow, because, you know, and the training and the work that Ms. Romero is working on with the CNI team and Mr. McWayne on standard-based assessment, standard-based grading, standard-based teaching, that foundation has been built, and they're continuing now to build on that foundation, that we can predict this is going to continue to go up. When we actually have the annual assessment that Dr. Sarangaram can then go through and do analyses of that, which won't be until next spring, our teachers will have even more discrete data to help them individualize instruction. However, when teachers come back this fall, they will have this data. They will also do another beginning of year assessment to, again, better assess those learning gaps. So we're on it. I guess the message to parents is, trust us. We haven't just covered our heads and hope for the best. We know what we're dealing with, is the real message here.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Excellent analysis. Thank you. Next, please. If you look at each subgroup, it seems to me that all subgroups have met district target, except special ed and EL language learner subgroup, English language learner subgroup. The Caucasian subgroup has the highest percent proficient at 78%. Next, please.
And again, when we talk about English language learners, also, we have to also consider second language acquisition that takes about 7 years, and we're not assessing these kids in Spanish. And so that is another concern, right? That you've got test bias in there. But we do need to work with the multicultural department and training and how we work with English language learners to better promote their success. Now, math is a little bit of a different story, and we've got our work cut out, continue our work cut out, but let's look at that data.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Overall mathematics percent proficient is about 18%, with a margin of error 2%. Next. Third grade has the 24% proficient, and the highest one actually. Next. All grade level has the increased percent proficient, and the district increased about 8% from BOY to EOY.
Now, of course, we don't have state data, but this is a statewide problem for whatever reason. You know, math proficiency seems to lag. But we are looking at, if you see these dips in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, the adoption of middle school math or mid-school math, that curriculum that's coming out of Taos that Ms. Singh talked about, that is nationally acclaimed and recognized as an evidence-based math program. we are implementing and training on. And so we should begin to see by next spring significant improvement in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, which should hopefully make a difference for 9th and 10th grade for high school, because that's the biggest issue that we hear from the high school, is that kids come in after 8th grade and don't have the skill set that they need. The other is focusing on the power standards for algebra, algebra 2, and so on. And Dr. Sarangaram will be working with the high school math departments on that. That will be targeted for sure.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Excellent analysis, ma'am. Comparing the IMESA result with the 2018-19 PARC result, generally the percent proficient in mathematics between IMESA and PARC very similar, very similar. And the pattern are the same, similar. What I'm saying is that grade 3 to 6 outperform grade 7 and 8 next. And if you look at in terms of subgroup, the Caucasian have the highest one, which is 42%, and met the district goal. Next is Ms. Ryle gonna present customize the report. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Sarangaram, President Noble, members of the board, and Dr. Garcia. We wanted to share with you, and Neil, if you go ahead and get into the next slide, we want to show you a sample of the student and teacher profile reports. This is a lot to look at, but I will just highlight that we have, because of Dr. Sarangaram's skill and ability to distill this data and get it all on one page, we have data to present to teachers and to principals that gives them an idea, both at the individual student level and at the school and district level, how we have proceeded from the beginning of year to the end of year data. This report breaks it down by reading, math, and language usage. We also know that we have the sub-skill analysis included for each of those content areas.
For each individual student, I just want to emphasize that this is not a aggregation of data for a school, although they have it, but each teacher will have this for each individual child.
Yes.
This is not common across the state. These are proprietary reports that are created by Dr. Sarangaram. And so this is, I mean, if I'd have had data like this when I was a teacher, that would have just been amazing, right? To have it broken down to this level.
Next slide, Neil, please. This report also shows data around reading, language usage, and math. And this is where we start narrowing in on our students and really how far they are from moving from nearing proficiency maybe to proficiency. We believe that these reports really, as Dr. Garcia just said, will offer teachers at PLCs a great opportunity to have deeper conversations about how students are performing, not only in their class, but through the curriculum in the upcoming school year.
Now, this is an aggregated report. This would be a school-wide report. Now, when we talk
report,
about
Dr. Garcia,
teacher report,
Yes,
right? But I mean, but it's for all their students. It's not an individual student report.
Yes.
And when we talk about PLCs, we're talking about professional learning communities where they meet, you know, as a group by grade level or by school to talk about student improvement and data and strategies and sharing best practices and whatnot.
Next slide, Neil.
And this is foundational work that has been happening, that has become just sort of a part of a practice. And one of the, I believe, beauty of succession planning and the institutional memory and building the leaders, right, that are going to continue. Teachers, principals don't have to worry, oh my God, there's a new administration coming in with a whole new philosophy, and now we're going to have to drop everything we're doing and go with a whole new approach. They take the approach to continue to tweak it and build on it, right? So the professional development that's been happening the last few days is based on work that we're already doing. So it helps mitigate one of the issues that you have with changes in leadership. One, you've had 5 years of continuous leadership, and now with the new administration, you're not making a big shift in direction. You have that continuity. So we should be able to continue to see growth.
So just to conclude this presentation, we're leaving you with this beginning with the end in mind. And next slide, Neil. We have what we call achievement level descriptors. And the reason these are important in the conversation with teachers is because it does start to norm that conversation about what on target looks like. And I am so happy to see Dr. Sarangaram nodding his head because he teaches me every day. But these reports really are designed to support teacher conversations, to really think about how we plan better, how we prepare better students to arrive to on-target levels. And if you'll go on to the next slide, Neil. This one is specifically on math. I think this is just a sample of what on target might look like for number and operations and fractions, measurement and data. These achievement level descriptors are very specific and tied to the standards. So it's absolutely exactly right what Dr. Garcia just said. The training that teachers are going through right now tied to this directly because of the standards. Next slide, please. Again, just some examples here about what on target looks like around geometry, problem solving, logical reasoning, and modeling. Next slide. And our conclusion and recommendations are four. The first one is reading proficiency of most subgroups and most grade levels improved to the district target of 40% proficiency, whereas math proficiency remains similar to the 18-19 part results. That trend maintained for math. Second recommendation is that school principals and teachers use the student profiles that are provided, as well as a teacher profile sheets, to align with the achievement level descriptors to build the student achievement foundations. We're recommending use of teacher profile and school profiles to set the percent proficiency target goal for next school year, for the 21-22 school year. And lastly, that we use the skill analysis from the profile sheet to build district, school, and classroom professional development that addresses the sub-skills. And that concludes our presentation this evening. President Noble, members of the board, and Dr. Garcia, Dr. Sarangaram, thank you for working with me on this. And I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you to the Board of Education. It's been an amazing experience supporting assessment in Santa Fe, and I will miss working with everyone there.
Well, thank you, Ms. Rael. We will absolutely miss you and appreciate all that you've given to this district. And this is some extraordinary information. It's really great to see that we are largely on target, and we hope that we can stay the course and start to reap additional benefits of some of the things that have been going on and these tools that have been put in place. And it really does give you an idea of, you know, what it takes to really turn things and increase proficiency, because it's not easy. And obviously, goodness, we've got to get those math numbers up.
And I know it's been a statewide trend and a long time trend, and we hope that mid-school math and some of the other innovations that we've brought in will certainly help us get to where we need to be. But having the ability to have this clear-eyed assessment with good data is really important. And Dr. Sarangarm, we absolutely appreciate you continuing as the secret weapon that you have become.
And Madam President, you know, one of the things that we do in SS Cabinet is that C and I mean, we're all working together, so it's not siloed. But what is important for our partners, whether it's ICPE or other partners, is that when they provide professional development, or they come in and tutor, or they want to be involved in what we're doing, this is why alignment is so important. And it's not that we want to be these control freaks and that we know it all, because we do work with a lot of partners on helping enrich our curriculum, whether we're working with LANL or we're working with Innovate Educate on project-based learning and micro-credentialing, or the community college. But we want to ensure alignment, because the last thing we need is to be training our teachers in a certain way pedagogically, right? And then they're getting professional development somewhere else that's taking them in another direction. And I think we've worked really hard to get all the arrows going in the same direction to have that. And so we love our partners. What we want to make sure is that they're aligned with our work and supporting our efforts, because we cannot afford to have our, have our teachers and our principals pulled in different directions. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to the students. And we've worked really hard to align our curriculum. If you recall where we started, where we had, even within a grade level, people using different textbooks and whatnot. It was pretty hard, right? To get us to this huge culture shift. And we hope that our partners understand that. We appreciate them, our tutors, but we need alignment.
Very good point. Thank you for making it. We do need to make sure we are aligned. It's like, the lines going off in all different directions versus they can go very long.
On that point today, I did an interview with a New Mexican on the state's roadmap to success, and they've just updated it. And I was asked, well, how is that going to work? Because they have stuff on reading and mathematics and community engagement and budget and just all these different areas. And I said, well, fortunately, our strategic plan already covers those areas. And we don't like to say, well, we're doing this plan for the state and this is our strategic plan. That would drive us all crazy. So what we look at is, what is the state requiring and how does that align with our plan? Do we need to tweak our work plan? And what we found is that it's not going to take hardly any tweaking at all, because so much of what they're requiring and requesting, we are doing already in our strategic plan and work plan. So as we're updating the work plan that goes to the strategic plan, we're keeping in mind now this new requirement from the state on the roadmap to success. So it's not an add-on, it will also be aligned to the work. And that's what we try to do, is just make sure that it fits with what we're doing, so we don't drive people crazy with 3 or 4 different plans.
Thank you. Other questions, comments from the board?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just in terms of the agenda, why have we moved the presentations after
the action items?
Yes.
We did that, and it was a little bit of a concern with, we had a heavy school board showcase agenda tonight, and our meetings have been running long enough that I wanted to make sure that we still had, you know, a fresh board for the action items upon looking at it.
Oh, I see.
So, you know, Dr. Garcia and I had talked through that. And when we're having these meetings, I mean, obviously we're coming up to 4 hours now that are a little bit of an endurance test for all of us. It's always a balancing act of where we do these things. And tell me, what do you prefer?
We usually have them before we get to the discussion items.
Yes, and I'm just asking if you prefer that, or just because this was, and again, my concern was that we be fresh and clear-minded for the action items.
Yeah, well, the action items is fine where they are, but I would prefer, this is just me, I would prefer the presentations be before we don't have much in the way of discussion, but in the past we have had some long-winded people who would have made this an impossible meeting. So I just wanted to ask. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, and you know, I think that as we move forward, any good ideas and preferences on the board on the order of things certainly welcome, and we appreciate Ms. Rael and Dr. Sarangarm staying to the end, and it is a lot of great information, and you know. And you're absolutely right. If we dug in, we could spend hours on these things. So, and I really want to balance what us getting good information, being fresh-minded and functional on actions, and you know, maybe we can even work on.
I would be fresher if we had them sooner. The presentations.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. All the presentations are, well, earlier were fresher, plain and simple, I think, because I can feel myself lagging as well. Okay. And I did want to note that in the packet material, we have this presentation, which is great because there's a lot of good information to digest on those slides.
Madam President, another thing that as you move into the new administration, you might want to consider, we've talked about this, but we never really have done it, of having board meetings starting earlier. You know, that's another possibility.
We just adopted the calendar.
No, you have the calendar, but you could always do it again, I guess. But I mean, that was an issue. We changed to Thursdays, right? I mean, after we adopted the calendar. So, I mean, you could.
Well, one of the things we discussed was that if we had it earlier, we might miss people who get out of work at like 5 o'clock, and people, you know, people running for the board who might be disinclined to run if the meeting is earlier.
Oh, no, that's true.
Well, I can say as a working person, much earlier is hard for me.
Yeah.
Because I do have a day job.
Yes. See, for me, every day is Saturday.
Exactly.
We all look forward to those days.
It's pretty nice, I got to tell you. I highly recommend it.
Well earned, I'm sure.
Okay. Yes, that's indeed. Okay, yeah.
Thank you. And like I say, I think we do need to keep sort of thinking about how we can do our meetings better because, yeah, at this stage, I don't think any of us are that fresh. Except
Yeah,
maybe for Dr. Saren.
I appreciate the information that we just got. And I did look it over before, we got here. But this is a stretch. Okay.
Yep.
See, because every day is Saturday for me, I took a nap this afternoon.
Oh, that sounds like heaven right now.
Well, you know how children just resent taking a nap? Well, when every day is Saturday, a nap before a school board meeting is highly recommended.
Highly. Well, thank you, Dr. Sarangarm and Ms. Rael, for being here till the end and remaining energetic and spunky and informative all the way through. Very much appreciated. And again, Ms. Rael, congratulations on your impending every day is Saturday existence.
Enjoy it. We will miss you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, last but not least, we have what's it called? Advanced planning is what it's called. 3 more meetings on the calendar. A CRC meeting on June 9th at 6 p.m. Audit committee meeting on June 10th at noon. And our final board.
I'm sorry. What was June 9th?
June 9th is CRC at 6 p.m.
Isn't that oh yes, that's right. That's a Wednesday. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And again, audit committee, June 10th at noon. And then our final meeting, tentatively an executive session on June 17th at 4:30. The regular meeting, as we have been doing, at 5:30. That will be our last meeting of the fiscal year and our last meeting with Dr. Garcia. So I'm not going to cry. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Anything else on advanced planning? Anything else at all? Okay.
I just wanted to say you need that for advanced planning. Everybody needs to plan for every day Saturday.
That is correct. That is,
that's advanced planning. Yes.
That's advanced planning, what we can all chart towards.
Put it on the calendar.
Yes. The other thing, Ms. Bose, would you please give my, I'm having major dental work done on the 9th, and so I'm probably not going to, I'm probably not even going to be able to speak on the 9th, okay?
Of course. If you like from the meeting, I'm free to accept.
The CFC meeting, yeah.
Good luck.
You're breaking up a bit, Sarah. I don't know if that's happening for others, but.
I love that.
No.
Just coming in and out.
A little garbled.
Any better with my video off, maybe?
It is. Your sound is way better with your video off.
The rural internet does me in at the end of the meeting, I guess. I said to Ms. Price that I'm happy to catch her up on the happenings of the meeting on Wednesday anytime if she would like, and good luck with the dental surgery.
Excellent. Thank you. Yes, we wish you the best with the dental.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's nothing further, we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
It's been great. And we'll
Good
see you
night.
again soon. Good night.
Thanks, Joe.
Bye, Joe.
Good
Bye,
night, everybody.
everybody.
Bye, Joe.